Welcome back to Patriot Secret. Picture this. As protests rage in Iran and Trump hints at stepping in, the world's oil arteries are pulsing with tension. Could this be the spark that sends your gas bill through the roof? Today, January 16th, 26, we're breaking down the fresh chaos that's got global powers on edge, and why it's America's fight to stay on top. Hang tight. This is the intel you won't get anywhere else. Let's jump right into U.S. foreign policy, because that's our front line. In the last day, the White House suspended immigrant visa processing for 75 countries, mostly in Latin America and Africa, tightening the screws on migration flows. Trump's team calls it a security must, but critics say it's stoking alliances against us. Meanwhile, Vice President Vance broke a Senate tie to block a war powers resolution on Venezuela, giving the administration freer rein after that bold raid capturing Maduro. For everyday Americans, this means potential wins on border security, but if it drags into prolonged ops, we're talking higher defense spending that could fuel inflation or divert funds from domestic priorities like infrastructure. On the global economy front, the World Bank just dropped data showing stronger than expected growth worldwide, thanks partly to U.S. AI booms, but warns of the weakest decade in 50 years ahead. China's clocked a record 1.2 trillion trade surplus for 25, shrugging off our tariffs like they're nothing. This hits home. American manufacturers face stiffer competition, potentially eroding jobs in key states, while our exporters scramble against Beijing's edge. Sanctions are biting harder too. New ones on Iranian entities amid those protests could ripple into broader restrictions, pushing up costs for everything tied to global supply chains. BRICS is making waves again. India unveiled its 26 presidency plans, focusing on tech cooperation and alternative payment systems to sidestep the dollar. With BRICS now outpacing G7 in GDP share by PP, they're flexing hard. Recent joint exercises signal a push into military ties. For us in the US, this erodes our financial dominance. If more trade shifts away from dollars, expect weaker currency strength and pricier imports, chipping at your savings and retirement funds. Over in Europe and the EU, things are fracturing. Reports say some nations are deploying troops to Greenland amid Trump's takeover threats, a wild escalation in Arctic resource grabs. The EU's pushing forward with competitiveness reforms inspired by the Draghi report, but political paralysis from populist surges in France and Germany is stalling big moves. This matters to Americans because a divided Europe means unreliable partners on trade deals like EU-Mercosur, which could flood our markets with cheap goods, or weaken NATO, leaving us to shoulder more of the defense burden against Russia. Middle East updates are heating up fast. Trump tweeted, "Help is on its way" to Iranian protesters twice yesterday, signaling possible military options as evidence mounts of regime crackdowns killing thousands. The Strait of Hormuz is back in the spotlight. If Iran blocks it, oil prices could spike to $150 a barrel. On a fragile note, the Israel-Hamas peace plan from October is holding with phased pullbacks, but risks remain high with Iran's proxies rebuilding. For U.S. families, any flare-up means instant pain at the pump, higher heating bills, and stock market jitters that could tank 401ks. Turning to China and the Indo-Pacific, the U.S. joined EU, Japan, Philippines, and Australia in slamming Beijing's latest drills around Taiwan, aggressive moves that spiked Sino-Japanese tensions. Southeast Asia's ramping up military buys amid uncertainty, while Trump's gambits, from Greenland to Venezuela, are seen as indirectly giving China cover on Taiwan's sovereignty plays. Currency shifts? The yuan's holding firm despite truce talks, but trade tensions simmer with new U.S. export curbs on tech. This directly threatens American tech leadership. If China corners more rare earths or AI, we're looking at lost innovation jobs and higher gadget prices back home. Finally, on military and diplomatic moves, U.S. forces are expanding ops abroad, from Venezuela interdictions to deepening Gulf ties like security pacts with Qatar and Saudi. But Trump's Fed feud, investigating Chair Powell, could unsettle markets further. Oil markets edged up briefly post-Venezuela strike, but settled. Still, with plans to rebuild their infrastructure under U.S. watch, it might stabilize supply long-term, easing some pressure on our energy independence. Folks, these moves aren't random. They're the U.S. clawing back influence in a world where China's stability is wooing allies and BRICS is rewriting the rules. It's a reminder, our power's not infinite, but smart plays can keep America first. What's your take? Trump's bold strokes a win, or risking overreach? Hit the comments, smash subscribe, and we'll unpack more tomorrow. Stay vigilant, patriots.